name's Jennie Ramsey, and I would like to share with you my 2022 Cherrywood Fabric Challenge. His name is Wise Choice, and he's based on a photograph my Uncle Mike took and gave me permission to use. I'd love to show you how I did it. But first, just kind of as a little side note, if you have never worked with Cherrywood fabrics before, you are in for such a treat. First off, they're very, very soft and light. They're about like a luxurious suede. And second, their colors are so deeply saturated that they're about like eye candy and very fun and effective to work with. So why don't you come with me and I'll show you how I did it. My first step was to order the Cherrywood Challenge bundle, and then I also ordered an extra yard of black for the base. Next step was to draw the pattern. I started with a 20 by 20 square on tag board and copied my uncle's photograph into black and white. Then I took the square down into my super high-tech image transfer station. In other words, my basement with some tape and an art projector. I brought the pattern back up to my dining room table to fill in some of the detail. I wanted the outline of the owl so I could trace it onto the lighter gray fabric. I bonded Misty Fuse to the back of the owl outline and then cut the silhouette out. Take it to the ironing board and bond it to the black fat quarter. I switched fusible web from Misty Fuse to Steam a Seam Light 2 for the darker gray accents on the owl. I like the Misty Fuse for the bigger bases and the Steam a Seam for the smaller pieces that I may need to reposition a couple of times. After the Steam a Seam is bonded to the dark gray, I cut and cut and cut some more. There's never enough cutting. Back to the iron. The dark gray accents are now bonded in place. You can see one of the first things I stitched was the dark gray accents, then started working the area around the eyes. And now you can see I'm filling in the medium and light tones. The other thing to pay attention to was the direction the feathers on the owl ran, and if I thought long or short strokes would capture them better. Next, it was time to think about making the appliques for the eyes. And yes, they too need to be fused on. For the stitching in the eyes, I wanted to do a sunburst type pattern with a metallic copper thread. It's pretty, but it's pretty rambunctious to work with. I had to run it up through a thread stand and then through my handy dandy taped on safety pin to make it behave enough to stitch correctly. Now isn't that nice? But I must say, much better with a pupil. After stitching the eyes, I cut them out, fuse them down, and then stitch them to the owl body. Next, I wanted to work on the eyebrows. I drew lines in the directions I thought the feathers should go. I thought long sweeping strokes of white up on top of his ears, and a few pulled over the eyes to make the eyes look more integrated and not just like they were pasted on top of the whole thing. I'm going to share a secret. I had to make 2 owls. This is the first one. And this area here, no, come even closer. This hideous mustache thing ended up being unsalvageable. I couldn't fix it. So, I took what I liked and I started on a new guy. You can see I'm laying down the various shades of gray through the body and leaving the mustache area till the end. I was curious to see if gray eyes would fit better, so I made some and tried them out. My reviewers said, nope, keep the gold. Next step was to prepare the finished owl. I bonded Misty Fuse adhesive to the back. Then back to cutting. I wanted to leave a nice healthy black border, so he would be set off from the background. The finished size of the wall hanging is supposed to be 20 inches by 20 inches, so I made a 23 by 23 inch square on my black background. That way I could trim off the extra and not run short at the end. I knew I was going to use the bright graffiti colors for the bricks in the background. I didn't know what size, kind of bigger or smaller. My daughter told me to use the bigger ones, and I think she was correct. In preparing the bricks, I fused steam-a-seam to each of the colors, and then cut them out with the rotary cutter. I was excited about this next part, the laying the bricks out. You can start to see how it's coming together. Guess what's next? You got it, back to the iron. I made the quilt sandwich, backing, then batting, and finally the quilt top. Then threw a few pins in it to hold it all together. Time for the brick applique. First step was to lay down what I called anchor lines, long straight rows of stitching that holds the 3 layers together so it won't shift and bunch as I applique the blocks down. I filled bobbins with the same color top thread so that the back of the wall hanging would be pretty too. To applique the bricks, I used a narrow but tight zigzag stitch and sewed around each block, matching color to block. I'm so pleased with how the bricks turned out. I'm getting ready to place the owl, so back to the iron. All that's left is to zigzag around that black border with my black thread and gold thread around the irises of the gold eyes. Time to trim the wall hanging to size. This is definitely one of those measure twice and cut once situations. I wanted to be sure my finished size was the required 20 inches by 20 inches. I cut the edges off, one side at a time. Then to finish the edges, I bound them in black cherrywood fabric. Once the binding was stitched to the front, then I blind stitched it to the back in the usual fashion. I think this is the way that most of us do quilt bindings. My entry is due May 1st, 2022. I'm supposed to submit a picture of the wall hanging with rulers and with 2 close-ups. And thank you for watching. I'm excited about the wall hanging, and I'm excited to share my process of making it.